Hello and welcome back to Coding with T. In today's tutorial, we're going to learn how to create, update, and delete brands inside our e-commerce admin panel. So first of all, let's quickly have a look what we are going to achieve. Okay, so we are inside our e-commerce admin panel and head towards the brands. So click on the brands. In the previous tutorial, we learned how to fetch all the data like this one from our Firebase Firestore database, and also you can see we have brands and also all the categories. We learn to establish connection between brands and categories using many-to-many database. If you're new, you can watch the previous video. Whereas today, when I'm going to click on this create new brand, you can see we have the brand and we are going to fetch all the categories available. Some categories are the parent categories and some are the child categories. So we have all the categories. You can select any category you can see, and then we have the image is featured. We can go to the brands, select any image that you want to be selected as a brand image, click on add, and that image is right over here. It is a featured. Let's name it test brand, click on create. It is displaying a loader and then a success message because the data added, and also it resets the complete form. Now let's go back, and to find it, let's go at the end, and you can see we have a test category. This is the icon, and we selected two categories for this brand. So we have two categories over here. This is featured and this is the date time. We can edit it as well. Let's change it from furniture and kitchen furniture to sports equipment, and let's change this featured. Click on update. Again, it is loading and you can see the message. Now let's go back, and this time you can see it has sports equipment and also featured icon is now gone. This means that the data is working. Now let's try to delete this as well. Click on OK, and once this is deleted, it should remove from the list and it is gone. Now you can also see the message. So this is what we are going to create in today's tutorial. Before starting, again, if you want to download the complete code, link is in the description, and also the complete e-commerce app and admin panel playlist link is in the description to watch all the previous and upcoming videos. So let's get started. So we are creating Flutter e-commerce admin panel where we have the last section and all the concepts already covered in the previous sections. As you can see on your left side, the link is in the description of this playlist. You can get the separate playlist links of each section as well. I'll drop the link in the description. Whereas for today's tutorial, we are creating create, update, and deletion of our brand screens. Just to save the time, I'm going to follow the exact same routine we have already followed for our previous tutorials for the backend, which is specifically for the categories. We covered each and every concept in a separate video, as you can see. So make sure to watch the previous videos, and let's head towards the project. Okay, open Android Studio, and first of all, the first thing we need to do is to go to the repository and write our cloud functions, delete, update, and create. So head towards the data repositories and open the brand repository.dart. In the previous tutorial, we learned how to get all the brands and also how we get all the brand categories, display these both things because this is the bridge table or relational table between categories and brands. So we learn how to fetch these two things and display on our data table. And now for today, we will come back to this one later on. But to create a brand, we have this function over here in which we are going to send the brand model, and we will call the Firebase Firestore.instance, which is the database, and the instance is created at the top over here. Call the collection of brands, and then we call the add function. We will simply call the brand.toJSON. So if you open this, this is the JSON method, and we have to wrap or add all the data of the brand, and then we will put all the data inside the JSON or convert it into JSON and store it inside the brands. Once the brands are stored, we also want to store brand and category relationship. So we have that function over here as well. We will send the second model, which will be brand category model, one by one, because we may have one category selected for this brand or maybe two to three categories selected for this brand. So we will pass the brand category one by one, and same Firebase Firestore.instance collection name, and then call the add method brand category dot to JSON again, because the brand category has only two things, brand ID and category ID. So we'll convert that into JSON and store it in the database. Also, we are getting the ID if required from the create brand, the document ID which will be created for both of them. And then we have update and delete methods. We will come back to them once we start working on those features. So first of all, once the repository has those functions, Let's go to the brand controller. And as if you see the category controller, we have two separate controllers for create category and update category. So I'm going to create the same two controllers over here. Okay, just to save the time, I have created that controller, which is a create brand controller extend with a GetX controller. It has few variables. First of all, loader. When the form will be submitted, we will start the loading and stop when completed. Then we have image URL, image of the brand. Is featured means that brand is featured or not. By default, it is false and it is the type of observable. All these three means whenever there is change in any of them, UI should automatically be redrawn by the OBX widget. Then we have the name for the brand name, form key for the brand, and also selected categories list. This means each brand can select one and more categories. We just have to define and display all those categories to the user, and it's up to the user to add as much categories as they want, or the admin. Then I'm going to create a function toggle selection. This toggle selection is for the single category when admin is trying to add or delete. So let's say if inside this selection we're going to pass the category, and when the selected categories dot contain this category, this means that there's categories already inside this selected categories, which means that this category was selected previously. Then this time we are going to toggle it, simply remove it from the category using a remove method of list, and else if it was not there, we are going to simply add that category inside selected list. So by this way we have our selected categories filled with all the categories selected by the user, reset field for all the forms, all the data. Then the same pick image function, when the user is going to click on that image icon to select any image, we're going to go to the media controller. Again, we covered this in detail. We created this reusable function, which is select images from media. It is going to display a bottom sheet, which is over here, in which we can pass the multiple selection to be allowed or false. By default it is false, and for the brand and categories we do not want multiple selections, so that's why I'm going to keep it as false. And then rest everything is created. Again, if you want to watch the previous videos, you can head towards the media section and you can watch everything related to the media controller. I'm going to head back over here. We will get those selected images, either one or many, but in this case we will have only one image. If it is not null and not empty, we're going to get the first image of the selected image list and assign that selected image list the URL of that image to the image URL value or the variable that we have at the top. This way we will have the selected image URL, and then we can easily store that URL inside the database. When user is going to create the form or the create the brand and click on the create brand button, then we're going to first start the loader, which is pop-up circular, which we have created over here, and it has this widget to display the circular animation. After that we have check internet connection. After that we have check internet connectivity, which is going to call the network manager class is connected function. And if you're using the connectivity plus package and you have the old version of this class, make sure to update it, because if you're going to update this package, there are changes created from the connectivity plus team. Those you have to change. Once internet is checked, if there's no internet, we are simply stopping the loader and return back. Again, the form is not validated, stop and return back. Then to store the data, when everything is fine, to store data inside the class, we have to map all those variables inside the brand model one by one. So ID will remain empty because while creating a new document, we do not have that document ID unless that document is created. And once definitely that document is created, we will get the ID and assign back to this new record. Okay, after this ID, we have products count by default 0. We're not counting any products here. Image URL assigned by this way from this variable. Then we have name. Created at date is now because updated date is by default datetime.now. Then is featured is the variable of is featured. Whatever the value is inside this is featured will be stored inside the brand model. And once the brand model is ready, you can see we're not storing any brand categories relation in this model. We are simply storing one brand as it is in the new record, and we're going to call the brand repository function dot create brand, which we just created, and we're going to pass the new record. And inside that create brand, it is going to store that data and return the document ID, which is a string, back to us inside the controller. And once we have that ID, we can easily store that ID inside new record dot id and store whatever ID we receive. By this way, we have now complete data of new record. Now the next phase is to store the user selected categories, right? So first of all, we have to check that if user selected any categories or the selected category is empty. If it is empty, we do not want to call our database. So if it is not empty, user selected one or more categories, then we're going to check that if new record.id is empty, this means that we cannot get the brand ID. And if we do not have the brand ID, there is useless approach to store the relationship because there is no brand. And by that way, we are going to throw the error. And if we have the brand ID, we have the selected categories, then we're going to run the loop on all the selected categories of the user one by one. And we're going to create brand category model because this is a relational model between brand and category. So we have brand ID, which we just received from here, which is new record.id, and category ID from this loop. All the selected categories will loop through one by one. We will get our model and again store by calling the second function, which is this one, and we will store the brand category. Now inside this new record, if you go to the model, you can see we have one missing empty brand categories variable, which is a list of category model. And now what we have to do, we have to see that if new record dot brand categories are null, then simply assign an empty string to them. Currently they are not null, and if they are not null or null, we are simply going to call add all method, means do not remove already assigned values to the brand categories, but if there is any, but while creating a new brand, there should be no brand category. But while updating, definitely there will be brand categories, and we do want to add all, means do not remove all the previous categories, rather add all these new categories inside this brand categories. So once the new record now contains its ID and also all categories, this means that update the table list, we can simply call the brand controller dot instance dot add items to list, and we will pass the new brand. So let's go to add items. It is going to get all the brands, update all items list, filtered items list, and selected rows list as well. Then we're going to reset the form, the function that we created at the top, to reset all the variables because they are not no longer needed. Then we're going to remove the loader, show a success message, and then exception if there is any. Okay, once the controller is created, we can head towards the screen, brand, and create brand screen. Directly, we can go to the brand form. First of all, we need to create the instance using get.put of create brand controller. And once we have the instance, we will be able to access all the functions of this class. So let me assign the form key and also all the variables. Okay, so I have assigned the form key and created the controller. And after that, to create all categories, if you remember the previous design, we have simple dummy key choice chip and with the padding. So this was variable that we copied multiple times as a children and we use the wrap property. Whereas today we have the obx until all the categories are loaded, and we're going to call the category controller dot instance dot all items. You can also add a loader if in case all items are not yet added. We want to first make sure that all items are loaded and then only we want to display the all items. But in this case, once we have all the items, we are going to run the map because we return a widget from here. So we will return a widget, but we will use element, means category dot name, or simply we can refactor the name to category. So we have category dot name, and when we're going to call controller dot selected categories dot contains category, if it returns true, selected is selected, and if there is no category inside selected categories, then we are going to return false as choice chip will not be selected. And also at the top, you can see we have OBX. It will automatically change the state of the choice chip. And when we're going to trigger the on selected, we will receive true or false. And based on that true or false, we're going to call controller dot toggle selection and pass the category. If the category is already inside the selected categories, it will remove it. Otherwise, it will add it. Then again, to display the image URL is not empty. We want to display the actual image, else default image. When there is default image, use the asset, else use the network. And on the on icon press, we are going to call the pick image function, which is going to display the bottom sheet with all the media. And then we have the checkbox. If it is featured or not, make sure to add OBX as well. And then when create is going to be triggered, we are going to call the create brand. And by this way, we will be able to create our brand. So let's run it. Okay, our application is running. Let's go to brands. We can see a loader and we have all the records. Now let's click on the create new brand. And in here, you can see we successfully have all the categories visible in front of us. So we have the brand name, we have all the categories. Let's try to see if they are selectable or not. Yes, it's working. Now let's try to add the brand name as a test brand. Let's add, let's say these two things. Let's select the media. It is working. Let's open the banners. We do not have any, sorry, brands in it. So let's select the categories. Yes, we have one image. So let's add it, and you can see the brand is over here, visible, featured is also working. So let's make it featured. Click on create. We can see the loader. Let's wait. And yes, record is created. All the data is now refreshed. Sorry, all the data is reset. Let's go back and let's find the test brand. Yes, we have the test brand. We have two categories. We have its image, and this means it is working very fine. Once the create brand is completed, now let's try to update. So first again, go to the repositories, and in the brand repository.dart, let's see the update brand function. So update is going to work in a bit different order because we're going to see that. But for the Firebase to update the brand, simply call the collection using Firebase Firestore.instance and dot collection of brands document. We are going to pass the brand with ID. So find the document and update it using brand.toJSON. So simply that brand will be updated. So here is a question that how we are going to deal with the brand and categories relation, because let's say user updated all the categories recently selected. So for that, before creating this delete method, we are going to create a method which is delete brand category. So why delete brand category? Because we are going to find all the previously added categories. We are going to remove them using Firebase Firestore.instance collection of brand categories document. We'll find the brand category ID or the document ID, and based on that we are going to delete that specific relationship, and we're going to create new relationships because we already have a function create brand category method. So once this is done, let's go back to the shop controller brand, and we have the edit brand controller. Again, just to save the time, we have all the variables that we need, same like the create brand, but we have the init method. This is the same init method, or the same way init method that we created inside the categories. This init method will be triggered because if we're going to edit those things, this time we do not want to let the user to see empty screen, because this is the edit screen, and when edit is going to trigger, we're going to pass. If you see this, when I'm going to click on this edit icon, we are going to pass this complete brand along with these categories. Like over here, we have one category. So either one or multiple, we're going to pass all those categories along with the brand details to this edit screen. And over here, we need to fill the name. We have to select all the categories, images, if it is featured or not. So to fill up all these variables, we have created a function, init function, and we are going to receive that brand over here, and we are going to get the brand dot name, assign it to this name, image to image URL is featured to this. And if there are brand categories, if it is null, there are no brand categories, then it's fine. If there are brand categories, then we're going to call our brand categories, selected categories variable dot add all, and it is going to get all the brand categories and assign all of them to selected categories. Then again, the same function, toggle selection and reset fields, and also the pick image. So we have these three things, same for both of them. You can again create a small abstract class as well for these two classes if needed for these 2 to 3 functions. That's up to you. Okay, down below we have a function which is going to be a bit different and which needs your attention, which is the update brand. We're going to receive the updated brand from the design. We will start the loader, check internet, form validation, and over here I'm going to add a one boolean variable which you will see later on, just to save different if statements again and again. So before updating anything, we are going to see that does user simply click on the update button without changing anything. So for that, we have to check if brand image is different than other, means if brand is changed or the name is changed or the featured is changed. If any of three things are changed, then we want to update the brand, right? So because brand is not directly linked with the brand categories relational data, so we just need to check that if the brand is updated or not. So if the brand is not updated, we are not going to do anything. Simply, we will head towards the selected brand categories. And if also it is empty, then we do not update any categories as well. So if the brand is updated, means any of these values are changed, we will make this variable as true. We will use the same brand and we will extract data back from these variables to the brand model. Again, we will map everything. Updated will be this time date time dot now, and we are going to call our repository, call the update brand method and pass the update, and it is going to simply update that brand. After once the brand is updated, we are going to see selected categories. If it is not null, this means there are some categories. I'm going to call a function which I've created down below over here, update brand category, and I'm going to pass that brand, right? So first of all, let's see this one because this one is important. We first have to fetch all the brand categories, means we have to fetch all the relationships of this brand. So we have to call the repository dot get categories of specific brand. So let me show you this one. It is inside the repository, which is going to call the collection of brand categories dot where we have to pass the brand id is equal to brand id over here dot get. So it is going to get all the documents which have this brand id, right? So this one, once we have those categories and brand relationships, we're going to map it on top of the brand category model, and by this way we will return the list. And once we have the list of all the relationships between this brand and with other categories, we are going to next get the selected categories, which just now is selected by the user. Using selected categories variable, we are going to get with the map, we are only going to get e.id, means the category.id or selected category id. So by this way, we have only selected category IDs, which will be a list of string now. And now we have to identify that which categories we need to remove, right? We have the categories already selected by the user before updating them. And now we have the categories just selected by the user. So we have to find the difference between both of them, and we have to find the categories. Before updating, they were inside the brand categories, but now they are not selected by the user, means they are not inside the selected category IDs, and we want to remove them. So let's call the brand categories. Let's say we have three categories previously added before updating. We're going to call the where statement, existing category. We have that existing category, and now we have to call selected categories dot contain. If the selected categories dot contain the existing category ID, then this means that it should be there. It was previously already inside the brand categories, and now this time we cannot remove that because user did not change his selection, right? And to add a not sign, this means that if this is not the case, then create a list, assign it to the categories to remove. Now to remove those categories, we have to simply run a for loop, call the brand repository again, call the delete brand category, and we are going to pass the category one by one from here. If you remember, we have that function delete brand category, and once we remove those categories which are unchecked or now not selected by the user or the admin, the next case is we have to identify the new categories that we need to add, right? We're not going to delete all the categories and then again add all the categories. It is going to be a waste of resources. So to have the efficient code, because running simple list is not expensive, so we're going to find the new categories. It is kind of a similar thing. Again, go to the selected categories, and this time it's a bit change. We have to first go to the selected categories and find the new category. We're going to call the brand categories, all the brand categories dot any existing category. If the existing category is already there, which is equal to the new category ID, means this situation is equal. Existing category and the new category ID is same. This means it is already there. So we do not want to add that. So that's why I'm going to add a not sign before that. And if that is not the case, we're going to get that new category because that category needs to be added. We're going to get that category, make it a list, send back over here. So we have now all the new categories. Again, for loop, create a brand category model using brand because we have the brand over here, brand.id with the category from this for loop. And we're going to store all of them using create brand method. Once this updation and deletion is completed, we are going to assign this brand with the new IDs. Brand categories dot assign all means remove all the previous and assign all the new values to selected categories. So we will get all the selected categories assigned to brand categories. Now this brand is updated, or we can call it up to date. And in order to update the list of the brand, which we already seeing inside the table, we have to call brand controller dot update item from list, which is this function in the abstract class. We simply pass the brand and that brand will be automatically updated. Okay, once this operation is also completed, later on in the products video, we are going to create a copy of brand and store it inside the product, because products will be viewing by many people inside our application. So to save the read, we are saving a copy of brand inside the products. So only when it is going to be updated, we also have to update those products, because updated operation is going to take only once in a week, or maybe it is not even going to be updated if everything is fine. So these things will not going to have extra rights, right? But every user is going to read the product. So while reading the product, if we are going to fetch the brand from the separate collection, we can do that, but it is going to first reduce the time. We will have a slow application in response, and also it is going to cost us extra reads, and that will be definitely an expensive operation. So to save that, we're going to create a copy of brand, store it inside the product as it is, as a complete brand. And when there is any update, we will call this function. Currently it is empty, and we will update that function as well. So if brand is updated, only at that time we are going to update the products of that brand. Okay, so for now, let's skip the products and update all the list again. Why I am updating update items, again passing the brand, because in case there are no selected categories, we did not updated any category, then again we have to even update these things inside our local list. If you want to update this, if you're using get builder, if you hover over this, you can see it only works for the get builder to update the UI wherever the UI is created. If you want to use this, it's up to you, but for our case we are using OBX, so that's why it's not needed. Just for your explanation. And then we have the remove loader and show a success message, and by this way we can easily update our brands. So once the controller is created, let's go to screens, go to the brand and click on edit brand. In the widgets we have to open edit brand form, and let me again assign, first create an instance and again assign all the values. Okay, so inside the edit brand form we are going to receive the brand. So first of all, let's go to the table, which is going to call the edit brand screen. In the table source at the bottom, you can see when the edit is going to press, we're going to send the actual brand to edit brand screen. So in the edit brand, we have the edit brand screen over here. We are receiving the dummy brand model instead of this one, because we are sending using get arguments. So we have to call get dot arguments, because it is only one single brand, so there is no need to worry about. We will only receive the one single item as a brand, and we will pass that brand through all these desktop, tablet and mobile. And if we go to the desktop, you can see that brand will receive over here, and we are simply passing the brand to our brand form. If you open this, inside it, first of all we are going to create the instance of our edit brand controller, and in that we created this init method which are going to receive that brand and update our variables. Once the variables are updated, we have all the values assigned. We have the name over here, we have a validation of that name, then we have selected categories. Same way we are going to use the map to use to fetch all the items, but to mark them selected or unselected will be based on selected categories, which is already done inside our init method. And rest of the things are again same, and when the button is going to be pressed, we are going to call update brand. We will pass the brand, and the rest is already known. Now let's try to run this application. Okay, our application is running. We are inside the brands, and this time let's try to update this one, which is featured, which has these four categories, and the name is Nike. Let's edit it. You can see the name is Nike. We have four categories already selected, and this is the icon. It is already featured. Let's change the featured. Let's say we have only two things in it, and let's change the name as well just to test it. Click on update. We can see the loader means function is called and the record is updated. Now let's try to go back, and yes, the list is also updated. You can see We have two E's, we have two categories, featured is removed. We can again go back over here and you can see with the latest data. So let's make it featured again. Sports and track suits. Again, change the name and click on update. Let's see. It is updated again. Now let's go back and we have that record back. So the last thing is to delete the data. So we can go over here. We have to call, or let's try to delete this test brand or whatever we want. To delete the data, we have to go to the brand controller, and in that we are already using the T-based controller. So let's open the T-based controller and let's find the confirm and delete item. And once this pop-up is showing, we have delete item. Are you sure you want to delete? And on pressing of the OK button, we are calling this function below delete on confirm, and we are passing that item, which is T item, means in this case will be a brand model. And once we have that brand model, we are going to call this delete item function, which is the abstract function, and we have to implement that function inside our brand controller. So we have that function, override it inside the brand controller, and it is currently not implemented. So what I'm going to do, we just need to make it async, call the brand repository dot delete brand. So let's call it. So to delete the brand, we have to delete two things. The first one is brand itself, and then the second thing is brand category relationship data. So we're going to receive that brand, and because these are two different transactions that we have to complete, and let's say we have the internet connection on and the brand is deleted, but while deleting the brand category relationship, the internet connection goes away, or maybe you're deleting first the relationship and then the brand, and there's something happened and the operation is not completed, or we get an exception. In that case, our data will not remain sync, and to delete such operations, we have to call the Firebase Firestore.instance, the variable that we created at the top. We have to create the run transaction, which will allow us to delete or run multiple transactions in it. And then we have to simply use this transaction to delete, update, and do whatever we want. So using this run transaction, we have a transaction variable in it. We are going to create only references. First of all, you can see db.collection brands.document brand.id. So we have that brand reference over here, and then we are going to add that reference inside this transaction, the one we have here, transaction dot get what we want to get. We want to get this brand reference. Now we have that brand reference as a brand snapshot. If this exists, fine. If it does not exist, we are going to return that brand not found. We definitely cannot delete this brand which is not in the database. After that, we have to go for the brand categories. Again, we're going to call the database collection brand categories dot where brand ID is equal to this one, brand.id. So we have all the collection inside the snapshot, which will be list of documents, either one or two or three. So we have those documents. We have to map them on the brand category model, which is the relationship of brand and category. Once we have those brand categories that we wanted to remove, if it is not empty, make sure to add this, otherwise you might end up with an exception. So if it is not empty, we're going to run a loop on the brand categories and use the transaction dot delete. Use this database again, collection brand category dot document where which document we want to delete. Inside this loop, we have the brand category dot id. So one by one, we will add all those things in this transaction, and they will be deleted. They will not actually be deleted, but becoming ready to be deleted, right? So at the end, we have transaction dot delete the brand reference, and as a whole, it is going to perform this operation because you can see the await sign. So it will remain waiting until the complete operation is performed, and by this way, we will be able to delete our brand. So we call the brand over here. Now let's go to the table, inside the table source, and right over here, when the on delete press will be triggered, we are calling the controller confirm and delete item, which is the pop-up, which is this one, and passing the brand. T is actually the brand model. So I think now we can run the application again. So it is running again. Let's go to the last page, and this time let's try to delete this test brand. Yes, it is working. It is displaying us the pop-up. Click on OK. We can see a loader. So let's wait until it is deleted. Yes, it's gone. Item deleted successfully. So this is how we create, read, update, and delete everything in 2 videos for the brands. I hope you learned something new. And if you have any questions, you can ask me in the comments. And once again, thank you for watching and take care.